Hey there, I'm the Madcatster. Am I glad to see you here? Well, we've heard a lot about Def Noodles recently, but guess what? I have found some juicy tidbits that you have not heard, and believe it or not, Def Noodles and his former girlfriend had a stalker who was really creepy, and I'm going to tell you about it, and you know I've got the receipts, so pull up a chair, pour yourself a cuppa, and join me for some tea and receipts. Hey there, I'm here with Sybil the Enforcer. Her mouth is still bothering her, but she is here with me, and pardon my voice, I'm a little hoarse, and Sybil wants you to please like and subscribe. We are below 17,000, but we're almost there. So if you'd hit the subscribe button, Sybil and I would really appreciate it. I did my last video about the royal family, and I was trying to do something as a diversion. Little did I know that even though most of the comments, as usual, have been positive, there were a handful of really unbelievably vicious and caustic comments and personal attacks on me based on some of the material in that video. So if you haven't seen it, go check out the Queen Put a Curse on Meghan Markle video. But tomorrow night I will put up another video. It's not going to be too long, but I was so upset and disturbed by the things that were said to me that I debated, but I think I want to address them. I think we need to clear the air. I think there is some misunderstanding and confusion going on, and I will do a video tomorrow night to address all of that, but that's not why we're here tonight. We're going to talk about Def Noodles. Well, he's gone from Minecraft cat, whom everybody loved, to wannabe stand-up comedian and wannabe allegedly illegal comedy club owner, to having his assistant totally trash him and quit on him, and him now apparently getting involved in a lawsuit against her. And let me tell you, it's not the first time Def Noodles has been involved in a court case. And I was doing some digging around, and I found that, believe it or not, a few years ago when Def Noodles and his former girlfriend were living in West Hollywood, they had a next door neighbor who was actually a West Hollywood city official who stalked them. And not only did it turn into a court case with all kinds of testimony, but there was even a California Court of Appeals case appealing the decision by the court. So it's a pretty big deal, and I'm going to talk to you about it right now, and we're going to go over some of the facts, and you know I've got the receipts. So Def Noodles, aka Dennis Feitosa, and his former girlfriend Lauren Soretta in 2019 were living in West Hollywood, and next door to them lived a man named Adam G. Bass, and according to the testimony and the facts, Mr. Bass was a planning commissioner for the city of West Hollywood, and I know he's still involved in city government. And you can see here on this website called WeHo for the People, which stands for West Hollywood, and Adam G. Bass is listed most recently as chair of the West Hollywood Planning Commission and a resident of the city's east side. So you would assume this guy must be, a respectable person. He's a city official. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you. In this instance, unfortunately, Def Noodles is on the receiving end of the craziness. I'm going to put this up here. This Adam Bass guy lived next door to them, and apparently in May of 2019, he started photographing them. And not just like a photograph, but like lots of photographs, and like clandestinely, like from his apartment window and from behind trees and lampposts and really freaky stuff. And the reasons he gave for his interest in them just didn't add up, and so Dennis and his ex-girlfriend ended up taking this Adam Bass guy to court to get a 5-year permanent restraining order. So let me tell you, that's pretty unusual. Usually when you get a restraining order, it's like for a year, and then you have to come back and renew it. This one was for 5 years. That's how seriously the court took it. So let's look at what was alleged and what Adam Bass's defenses were. He was a planning commissioner, as you can see here, for the city of West Hollywood. He lived next door to Feitosa and his girlfriend Soretta. In the 2 years that preceded the June 2019 hearing on the restraining order, what I'm showing you now, this comes from the Court of Appeals from California. So this was Bass appealing the restraining order. We'll talk about what happened. But anyway, so here are the facts. In the 2 years that preceded the June 2019 initial hearing on the restraining order, so the first court case, Bass regularly photographed and recorded Feitosa and Soretta when they were outside their home. During 2019, Feitosa and Soretta provided doggy daycare services out of their home. And when Bass learned of the business, he reported it to the city of West Hollywood's Code Enforcement Division in 4 different complaints, which right there, that sends up a red flag to me. That sounds a little excessive. On May 5th, 2019, Bass photographed Feitosa and Soretta on their sidewalk with the dog, and the photograph was included in a complaint filed by Bass with the local enforcement that very same day. Then on May 7th, 2019, Feitosa filed a self-represented request for a civil harassment restraining order. So Dennis asked for a restraining order and he filed with the court. Okay. Dennis sought protection for not only himself and his girlfriend, but also their assistant who worked out of their home, because he also had apparently been photographed and was really creeped out by this guy. All of this photographing and video footage of them went on for over a year, and Dennis asked the court to restrain Mr. Bass, in other words, to tell him not to film and record them. Okay. So Mr. Bass, of course, through his attorney, responded to the allegations, and what he said was this. He said through his attorney, on May 29, 2019, he filed a response to the request. In a declaration, Bass attested, so like it's basically like an affidavit, that his role as a community leader requires him to ensure that the neighborhoods of West Hollywood are safe, code compliant, and that the residents of West Hollywood enjoy a high quality of life. Well, it sounds like he thinks he's the mayor, which he's not. So I think he's giving himself a little more self-importance than he really has. And it said that Bass felt that it was his responsibility to report code violations and other matters that blight the streets of his neighborhood. And based on his observations of Feitosa and Soretta running a doggy daycare business, he photographed them on May 5th, 2019 from 150 feet away. This is now again Mr. Bass's allegation, or his version of what happened. And it says that Bass attested that Feitosa and Soretta could not prove that Bass was causing them emotional distress, as he had never met them. So then they refer to some more detailed testimony that Dennis and his ex-girlfriend gave. And it says, Feitosa stated Bass filmed and photographed him and Soretta daily and had taken photos of him maybe over 100 times. Feitosa testified that Bass filed a total of 4 complaints with the city's code enforcement, but that all the complaints were closed without penalty or judgment against them. So clearly, whatever this guy thought he was reporting, because it doesn't really say specifically, I'm assuming it has something to do with the dog business. The city didn't feel that there was anything there. But still, this nut job, my opinion, by the way, filed 4 separate complaints for basically the same issues, it sounds like. So it's like, first of all, you're like, what is your problem, dude? It's like, if the city investigates it and finds there's nothing there, move on. But not this guy, okay? And so we're seeing that he obviously became obsessed with these two and took it to another step. And it says that, and Feitosa also showed through exhibits and testimony that Bass's statement said he had never met Feitosa or Soretta, and about how close he was when taking the May 5th, 2019 photograph were untrue. So Dennis and his ex-girlfriend had evidence that disproved Mr. Bass's assertion that he didn't know them and that he was far away from them when he took that alleged one photograph. Okay. And Dennis's ex-girlfriend, Lauren Soretta, testified that she had seen Bass photograph her over 20 times, and that Bass photographed her from his apartment window, which overlooked her driveway in the street, and that if she had friends coming over, he'd go behind lampposts or trees, and she'd see him behind them, and it's really creepy. I agree. That is really creepy. And it says Soretta testified that 6 months before the hearing, she was standing in the driveway and taking pictures with friends. Bass exited his apartment building, crossed the street, watched her and her friends, pointed his phone toward them as if he was recording them, and she testified that he had the phone up and it was as if he was looking at us. So it was like eye contact interaction that made her feel very uncomfortable. So, it was obvious to her that by the way he was holding the phone that he was recording them, that he wasn't just looking at his phone, he was recording them. So the assistant then, who worked out of the house, testified that on May 20, 2019, a month before the first hearing, he was walking down the street towards the Feitosa's home, and Bass was walking in the opposite direction toward him. When he looked up from his phone, the assistant saw Bass immediately in front of him, photographing him, which made the assistant nervous. And yeah, I agree. This guy sounds like he's a real creep. So Stalking is not something to laugh about. Whatever talk there is going on about Dennis, nobody should be subjected to this. This is awful, and I feel for him, and I'm glad that, the court did the right thing. So anyways, Bass also testified that other than the single photo, which we know is ridiculous based on the evidence, he had never photographed Feitosa Serreta or the assistant, except for that one time, right? Okay. He testified that he always takes his phone. Okay, now listen to this. This is so ridiculous. He testified he always takes his phone with him when walking his two dogs and holds the phone directly in front of his face, at least at chin level, because he has a dog leash over his arm and because he's farsighted. He denied hiding behind trees and light poles to photograph or record Feitosa or Serreta. So, come on, guys. It's when somebody is photographing you or aiming the camera on their phone at you, that's not something that is easy to mistake. And this sounds like it was pretty blatant. So this is really lame. And thankfully, the court didn't believe this bullshit. It said that the court did not find Mr. Bass to be a credible witness. The court found that his description of his own behavior betrayed a manner of obsessively wanting to monitor his neighborhood, including the petitioners, Dennis and his ex-girlfriend. Basically, the court says that it found that Mr. Bass, over a period of years, had stalked Dennis and his ex-girlfriend while out on the street, and he harassed them by videotaping their movements, both from his window and on the street. The court found that the petitioner, which is Dennis, and the witnesses were credible in their description that respondent was attempting sometimes to hide behind trees, sometimes to obviously follow them. Based upon the evidence presented, the court found that a reasonable person would be afraid, annoyed, and intimidated by the respondent's behavior. So I agree. Wouldn't you be freaked out if somebody was doing this to you? And so the court found that it was harassment. The court found that the evidence presented a reasonable likelihood that the harassment would continue in the future if a restraining order did not issue. And so on June 14, 2019, the court issued a 5-year civil harassment restraining order protecting Feitosa and Serreta, but not the assistant, because they probably decided that one incident wasn't enough. It's clear that what this guy's doing is unlawful harassment. And so the 5-year restraining order issued. Now, Mr. Bass decided in 2020 to appeal. And so he filed an appeal, and he made some pretty ridiculous arguments I'm going to show you here. And so in his appeal, he asserted that the trial court, so the lower court's finding that Bass had excessively photographed and videotaped, was not supported by substantial evidence, in his mind, I guess. He argues there was no evidence of videotaping because no video was introduced at trial, and that there was insufficient evidence of photographing because a single photo was admitted at trial. So he's saying that what he's alleging was the one photograph was introduced at trial. But the court clearly found that Dennis and his ex-girlfriend were credible, and they provided enough detail and evidence that the court found Mr. Bass was harassing them. Bass contended in his appeal that the court's findings were impermissibly based on speculative witness testimony that was simply not enough to eliminate a substantial doubt that Bass could have been taking a picture of himself or simply reading his phone. BS. Problem with Bass's arguments, the court said, is that he essentially asks the court to reweigh the evidence and redetermine credibility findings of the trial court. So, when you appeal, there's got to be like a mistake of law or, some other significant factor that would have changed the outcome if it hadn't happened. And so what the court is saying is, basically, Mr. Bass's appeal is simply that the evidence wasn't credible enough. The court shouldn't have found that it was credible. Well, that's not enough. Courts are not going to, what they say, the term is disturb a lower court ruling if they feel that the lower court tried the case and made its decision reasonably and based on the evidence. And so what they're saying is they're not going to reassess the credibility of the witnesses when the lower court clearly stated that they found the witnesses to be credible. So that wasn't an issue that you can get a court to overturn a lower ruling on. And in this instance, they say, contrary to Bass's assertions, the testimony of Feitosa Serreta and their assistant provided substantial evidence the defendant excessively photographed and recorded Feitosa and Serreta. And so the court left the 5-year order in place and did not overturn the ruling. He wasn't charged with any criminal offense, but clearly he's a public official. He doesn't want this on the public record. doesn't look very good, and it makes him look like a lunatic, in my opinion. Good for him for going after this guy, because I would be totally freaked out, you know? I don't care who he is or what his position is. You don't know when somebody's going to snap or when they've got some serious psychological problems and what they're going to do. And it sounds like he was really obsessed with them, because he had no genuine basis from what they're saying to have any issue with them. And the city investigated 4 times for the same allegations, apparently, and found nothing there. So the guy's clearly obsessed. So yes, he's somebody I would be very wary of and very intimidated by, in terms of you don't know what the hell he's going to do. So that's the story of the stalker. Let me know what you think down below. I thought it was not, I don't want to say interesting, but I thought it was significant enough, and it was something I had never heard before. And so when I read it, I was like, oh my God, this is really creepy. And I just thought that it'd be something that'd be really good to talk about, since I haven't seen anybody talk about it before. So the guy is still restrained from interacting with them and doing whatever the creepy things he was doing. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you guys. We got a package. I'm sorry, I'm not going to open it. There was 2 cases of cat food from Amazon wishlist, and there was also a box with treats. Unfortunately, there were no slips inside. I don't know who sent them, but whoever you are, thank you very much. And the reason I'm not opening the package, because it arrived a couple of days ago and I needed the food, so I already opened it so that I could feed the cats tonight. Thank you so much. Those of you who send stuff from the Amazon wishlist, we love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate it. Sybil appreciates it. And I am going to make some short videos of the cats using some of the stuff that we've gotten. And, you know, people had said, can you take video? And I don't want to like cram it into a regular video. So I think I've never really used the shorts feature. I think I'm going to make a playlist of shorts, and I'm going to like show you stuff about the cats, because people want to see more about the cats. And I think that's a good way to do it. So thank you so much for joining me. Look for my video tomorrow if you're interested to find out what the unbelievable drama that was thrown at me from my royal family video. But you guys, take care of yourselves. Thank you for all of your support. All of you. We love our family. And I will see you in the next one.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.